Part 1. My husband told me don't look behind you, and when I did, I saw a shadow figure with glowing eyes. It wasn't even a whisper that made me turn my head, not the soft breath of a person trying to avoid drawing attention. No, it was his voice, sharp, clear, and completely terrified. There was a sense of urgency in it that made my heart stop. In that instant I felt a coldness in the air, like the temperature had dropped several degrees in a blink, and I could feel every hair on the back of my neck stand up. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see what he was so afraid of. But the pull of his command was too strong. It was like his words were etched into my very being, compelling me to do the one thing he so desperately told me not to. "Don't look behind you," he repeated. His voice barely a whisper now, but I could hear the trembling fear in it. "Please just don't." But by then it was too late. I had already turned my head. At first, it was just the dim light of the hallway, flickering slightly above us, and the soft creak of the old house settling around us. We had been at my grandmother's house for less than an hour, unpacking our bags, trying to get comfortable in the place that had been so familiar to me growing up. But now it felt wrong. When I glanced behind me, my eyes immediately locked on to the darkest corner of the hallway, where the shadows seemed to gather thicker than normal. It wasn't natural, there was something about the way the darkness clung to that corner, like it was alive, suffocating the space around it. And then I saw it. A figure, tall and thin, standing perfectly still in the corner. It was completely shrouded in darkness, its outline only barely visible, as if it were part of the shadow itself. But what struck me the most, what made my stomach twist into knots, were its eyes, glowing faintly, but enough to make my blood run cold. The eyes glowed with a sickly yellow light cutting through the darkness, staring directly at me. I gasped, stumbling back in shock. The figure didn't move, but the eyes, they followed me. My heart hammered in my chest as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. My mind couldn't quite process it. Was this a trick of the light? Was I imagining it? But then I heard my husband's voice again, a tremor now lacing his words. "I told you not to look." I snapped my eyes away from the figure and back to him. His face was pale, his jaw clenched, eyes wide in terror as he stared at the same thing I had just seen. But I could tell he wasn't looking at it with curiosity. No, he was looking at it as if he were facing something he couldn't control, something beyond his understanding or ability to fight. His hands were shaking, his breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. It was as if he'd seen this before. I could see the tension in his muscles, the way he stood just a little too rigid, like a man preparing for something terrible to happen, yet powerless to stop it. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, afraid to break the tension. I couldn't tear my gaze away from the shadow in the corner, even though every inch of me screamed to look away, to run, to get as far from this house as possible. "I don't know," he said, his voice shaky. "I've never seen it up close like this. But I know we shouldn't be here. We should leave now." His words were like ice water, freezing me in place. My feet felt heavy, like they were stuck to the floor, my legs unable to move. It was as though the air around me had thickened, making it hard to breathe. I wanted to trust him. He was my husband after all, but his panic only fueled my own. I needed answers. "What do you mean you've never seen it up close? What is that thing? Is it real?" Could barely bring myself to speak the words, but they spilled out anyway, tumbling from my lips in a frantic rush. I took a tentative step toward him, still keeping my eyes trained on the shadow. It was as though the figure was watching us, waiting for something, like it knew we were both too scared to make move. My heart was pounding, and every instinct I had screamed for me to turn and run out the door. But something, some deep primal need for answers, kept me rooted to the spot. "I don't know, but I've seen it before, just not in this house," he said, his voice low almost reverent, like he was afraid to say too much, like saying the wrong thing might make everything worse. What do you mean? I asked, stepping closer now, the dread in my stomach twisting tighter. Where? When? He closed his eyes briefly, as if trying to block something out. When he opened them again, there was a sadness in them, a regret that I hadn't seen before. Before we met, he said, quietly, I used to stay at a friend's cabin out in the woods. He had warned me about the house, told me strange things happened there, but I didn't listen. I thought he was just being paranoid. That was until I saw it. His words hit me like a slap in the face. Wait, you've seen this thing before? And you didn't think to tell me? My voice cracked, and I felt the panic start to rise again, spreading like wildfire through my chest. It's not something I wanted to tell you, he said quickly. It's not something you can just explain. Follows people. Doesn't stop. The more you try to run from it, the closer it gets. Has a way of luring you in, of making you feel like everything is normal, that you're safe. But it won't let you go. And when it's ready, it'll take everything from you. Your peace, your safety, your mind. The room felt colder, the shadows darker, and I found myself shivering, though I couldn't say if it was from fear or something else entirely. He was talking about something so impossible, so beyond comprehension, that my brain couldn't quite keep up. But his fear was real. His shaking hands, his pale face, and the way he couldn't meet my eyes. It all pointed to one undeniable fact. This was no mere figment of imagination. Something terrible was happening here. How do you know all this? I asked, my voice tight, barely a whisper. How do you know it's the same thing? That it's not just a shadow, or it's never just a shadow, he interrupted. It's real. Follows you. It's not just in the dark. It's in your mind too. Makes you doubt yourself. It makes you question everything. Makes you feel like you're losing your mind. I looked at him, my mind reeling with confusion, trying to process what he was saying, trying to understand why I hadn't seen any signs of this before. How had I missed it? How had he kept something this big from me for so long? And then, like a thunderclap, I felt it. The air around us seemed to tighten, like a grip closing around my throat. My stomach flipped. The room felt colder, darker. I turned my head slowly, my gaze going back to the corner where the figure had stood. And there it was again, but this time the eyes were brighter, glowing even more intensely. It was as though it had been waiting for me to look. It was like it knew we were talking about it. We had acknowledged its presence. And now it was time to make its move. I froze, my heart hammering, my legs feeling like they were made of stone. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. All I could do was stare at those glowing eyes, willing myself to look away, but somehow I couldn't. The shadow began to move then, slowly, deliberately. And for the first time I knew, truly, knew that there was no escaping it. Part 2. The house was silent. The air around me was thick, suffocating, and my every breath seemed louder than the last. I couldn't move. My legs felt like lead, and my heart raced with a terror I couldn't escape. The figure in the corner, tall, unnaturally still, and shrouded in darkness, was still there, watching, waiting. I could feel the presence of it, like it was seeping into the very walls of the house, into my skin. The temperature had dropped so quickly that I could see my breath in front of me, even though the house had always been warm before. The floor creaked beneath my feet as I took a cautious step back, still holding Lily tightly in my arms. She wasn't crying, but her little body trembled against mine, her small hand clutched around my finger as if she too knew something was wrong. I didn't know what to do. My husband had stopped moving. He was frozen, his face pale, his body stiff, as if some invisible force had taken control of him. His eyes were locked on the figure in the corner, his expression a mixture of fear and resignation, as though he had been expecting this to happen. Jeff, I whispered, my voice cracking. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the shadow, but I needed him to snap out of whatever trance he was in. I needed to know that he was still in there, still my husband, the man I had trusted with my life and the life of our daughter. He didn't respond. His mouth was slightly open, but his eyes were glazed over, as if he were lost in another world, a world that had nothing to do with me or Lily. My hand was shaking as I reached out toward him. Jeff, I said again, louder this time. Please, say something. Anything. His gaze finally shifted, but it wasn't toward me. He didn't even seem to recognize I was speaking to him. He looked past me, beyond my shoulder, his expression still frozen in that same paralyzed stare. I followed his gaze, turning slightly, and my heart almost stopped. The figure was moving, slowly, purposefully. Its dark form seemed to dissolve into the shadows, melting in and out of sight like smoke, until all I could see were those eyes, those glowing, sickly yellow eyes, staring straight at me, burning through the darkness like twin beacons. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to run, to grab Lily and run out of the house, but my feet were rooted to the floor, my legs too weak to take a single step. I couldn't even manage a sound as the figure took another deliberate step forward. With each movement, the air grew colder. The room felt smaller, closing in on me. The walls seemed to stretch, pulling away from me, making the house feel like a maze I couldn't escape from. Jeff's voice broke through my haze, but his tone was weak, strained. He was still in some kind of daze, his words coming out slowly, as though he had to force them through a thick It's too late. Too late for what? I whispered, my voice barely audible, more afraid of the answer than the question itself. What do you mean, it's too late? He shook his head, his eyes still glazed, as if the words were too much for him to say. But his mouth moved again, a few broken syllables slipping past his lips. It's been following me for years. It doesn't let go. The weight of his words hit me like a ton of bricks. What are you talking about, Jeff? I asked, almost pleading with him. What is following you? What is that thing? We need to leave. Right. Well, we need to leave before it gets any closer. I glanced at the figure again. It was closer now, its glowing eyes now only a few feet away, burning into me. My entire body screamed to run, but I couldn't make myself move. Couldn't even tear my eyes away from it. It was as if it had some kind of power over me, like it was controlling my very mind. Jeff's voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. It's been with me since I was a kid. The things I didn't want to bring it into your life. Into ours. He stopped, swallowing hard. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. I thought it would leave me alone. But it doesn't. It never does. I shook my head in disbelief. You knew about this. And you never told me. I never told you because I thought I could protect you. Protect us. I thought, if I ignored it, it would ignore me. My heart sank. He had been carrying this weight for years, and now it had caught up with us. Was here. And it wasn't going anywhere. The figure took another step forward, and this time I saw it more clearly. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was tall, humanoid in shape, but twisted, distorted. Its body was a mass of shifting darkness, like it was constantly changing, always adapting. The eyes, though, those eyes were the only thing that remained unchanged. Those glowing, menacing yellow eyes that locked onto mine with a malevolent force. The room felt impossibly small now, as if the walls were closing in around us. My chest tightened and I couldn't breathe. I knew something terrible was coming. I could feel it in my bones. The figure's voice broke through the silence, though it didn't come from its mouth. Came from everywhere. From the walls. From the air. From the very ground beneath my feet. It was a low, guttural sound that sent chills down my spine. You're too late, it hissed. You shouldn't have come. You should have stayed away. I tried to scream, but the words wouldn't come out. It felt as though the very air around me was thickening, pressing in on me, choking the sound before it even reached my mouth. But then something strange happened. A low, rumbling noise echoed through the house, almost like a growl, but it was different. It was distant yet close at the same time. The figure faltered, its attention momentarily breaking from me. Not now, it murmured almost to itself. Not yet. I didn't wait for it to turn back to me. I grabbed Lily, cradling her in my arms and running toward a door. My legs felt like they were moving through molasses, my steps slow and clumsy as I tried to get as far from that thing as I could. Jess, don't. Jeff's voice cut through the panic in my chest, but I couldn't stop. Couldn't leave him behind, but I had to protect Lily. I reached the door, my hand trembling as I turned the handle. The door wouldn't open. Yank at it again, harder this time, but it didn't budge. The air grew colder still, and the figure was moving again, its eyes fixed on me with a vengeance. Please, 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 I whispered, trying to make sense of everything. What was happening? What had Jeff gotten us into? The rumbling noise grew louder. It wasn't a growl. It was a voice I recognized. A voice that had been long buried in my memory. A voice from my past. Get out. Now. And then the door flew open. I didn't look back. Couldn't. I ran, heart racing, with Lily in my arms. I didn't know where I was going or what was chasing us. But one thing was clear. Something far worse was coming. And we were running out of time.